Cece and Romeo, Monday through Saturday on 93.5 KDAY.
It's 935 KDAY. Listen, Cece and Romeo, we are excited about today. Today's really special because we've got Rob Kinner. And Rob Kinner, he has this book, The Marathon Don't Stop, The Life and Times of Nipsey Hussle. When we found out about this book, Romeo, we got all geeked up about it, correct?
ASAP, man. Welcome to the show. How you doing this morning?
I feel very blessed to be in the presence of the KDAY family, speaking to the city of Los Angeles. Big respect.
Man, we got so much respect for you. So let's talk about it, man. You were the founding editor of Vibe, correct? So you started with Vibe, and now just thinking about Nipsey just kind of just takes over me. So it's real personal. But let's start with you with Vibe magazine. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, well, I got my start in music media thanks to Quincy Jones's Vibe magazine. I was part of the startup team. And even to utter the name Quincy Jones and be mentioned in the same thought process with a legend like that is one of the proudest things I'll ever be able to say for myself. Yeah. So I was there for 17 years, as a matter of fact. I'm the last man standing from day one till the wheels fell off, as they say. So, and that's where I met Nipsey Hussle. He came up to the offices of Vibe in 2009, shortly before the print magazine went out of business.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Now let's talk about that. When did the idea of writing Nipsey's story begin with you?
Well, like I said, this has been a long time coming. In 2009, Nipsey Hussle came up to our offices at Vibe to present his mixtape Bullets Ain't Got No Name Volume 2. Mm-hmm. And, for me, having worked on Vibe from the earliest incarnation of the magazine, I remember we did the first cover on Snoop in 93. And I had a strong sense of deja vu listening to young Nip Hussle flowing over, I think it was the Gin and Juice beat on the Dre Jackin' for Beats cut off of that Volume 2 project. So I just, I felt his energy right away. I was really impressed with him, and I spoke to him after he presented his music, and I just said, keep doing what you're doing. We're going to give you whatever strength that we can. And I found out later he had been on a mission to get into Vibe. We had a section called Next where artists like
I remember.
Yep.
Yeah, like Mary J. Blige, Outkast, Nas, Biggie got their first look in that page in the front of the book. So Nip set his sights on that, and as with every goal in his life, he just stayed focused. And I found out later he was sending his headshots and demos to the magazine and was a little bit salty that we weren't getting back to him. But
right. But I remember going through Vibe magazine and I would look to Next because it always let us know like who to look out for. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
And sometimes I would be like, certain hometown rappers, you're like, let me see if they highlighted them. I would always do that. And
it's so amazing because the people you've named before Nip, right, they're so legendary. And at the same time, you met Nip, and now did you see that in him when you first met him? Did you feel that kind of energy?
Absolutely, 100%. He was something special, and it was obvious to everybody in the room. His charisma, apart from the music, was hard, but it was just speaking to him and the way he presented himself. You could just feel his energy crackling in the room. And anyone that's been fortunate enough to spend time with him can say the same thing. I'm sure you have similar stories. And but you asked about the inspiration for the book, and that was a bit later. When he was doing the Victory Lap rollout, he came to New York City. At that time, I was at the offices of Mass Appeal. I was working with Nas's company, Mass Appeal. And, I said, wow, Nip's dropping his album. We have to get him up here. We have to have a convo with him. And, sure enough, he came. It was the earliest appointment that any rapper has ever booked for an interview. 9:30 in the morning. We had to get the crew in early. They're like, is he really going to be on time? Well, he was 10 minutes early and, had a packed schedule, hitting every media in New York, and had his green tea and sipping it on the couch. And it was a mind-blowing conversation, just to cut to the chase. I walked out of that room realizing that this was way more than the 5-minute YouTube video that we were going to present on Mass Appeal's YouTube. And that's a cool video if you ever want to check it out. But there was so much more that I learned about myself and everything. Anyone that's had these convos with Nip, I'm sure they will tell you a similar story. But having worked on books about Biggie and, a lot of different publishing experience that I had, I realized that I had a responsibility to tell Nipsey Hussle's story in full. And, that's what I began to do. And, if you check it out, there isn't even that many decent magazine profiles of him. for such an important artist. You know, apart from the beautiful GQ spread on Nip and Lauren, California Love, which, you know, focuses on their relationship and gives some of their story, and it's an amazing piece. But those real like foundation profiles of this artist were not done because I think he was considered under the radar, underground, whatever. And so I felt like this was an important contribution for me as a music journalist to just tell his story properly, present him in the context of hip hop history, and give him his rightful place.
Yeah, exactly. And what I was going to say, Rob, was that it means a lot to us, excuse me, especially because, you know, being born and raised in LA, I am a West Coast girl till I die. And Nipsey leaves he has such a heavy influence still to this day, you know, in the city of Los Angeles. So we all knew Nip. We you know, we all respected him, and we knew how amazing he was. I mean, like you spoke about, you know, his charisma, the aura that he had. You know, one of his music videos, I'm actually in the cop car, you know what I mean, laying down trying to get footage. Yeah, and it's so crazy because we did a music video with him, and as soon as we were done with the scene, I'm not gonna lie, I was nervous because they were driving the cop car fast, and he like laughed and he's like, "You good?" And I was like, I'm good. But it just speaks volumes. He was so amazing. He was early at that music video as well, and he was just everybody was kind of nervous to ask him for pictures. You know, you don't know what to say, and you could tell people wanted. And he would look. He's like, "You want a flick?" And so he initiated it, and it just was like, man, this guy is just still so down to earth. And the fact that you did this book, I just want to say thank you, because it means a lot for people like us from Angelinos that you did this, and you did this for Nipsey, and you did this for his fans.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
That means a lot to hear you say that. And I'm actually born in California myself, although I've lived in New York most of my life. And I don't know if I have that West Coast formative years attitude or what, but you know, I definitely vibe with Nip in our conversation. And after the interview wrapped, he's like, "That was dope. You on your shit." So, you know, I took that as a big compliment. And you mentioned about doing it for the family. I just want to put it out there that, you know, this is an unauthorized biography. No one's signed off on what I've written. It's my account as a music journalist, and written with 100% love and respect. And I also made the decision to donate a portion of the proceeds to his family, not because it was a business transaction, but just out of respect. So
no, that's
beautiful.
Respect. So
yes.
Now, were you thinking of maybe putting some of this together before his passing, or is that what triggered it? Because you felt like, you know what, people did not know enough about him. They didn't get a chance to enjoy him more. So let me write this book. What was your approach towards it?
No, it was 100% in the works prior. Like I said, you know, during the Victory Lap interview, I was, you know, saying, how are we going to make this a 5-minute video? And also having the opportunity to have seen him in different stages of his career, I realized, like I said, there just hasn't been enough written about him. And even like when I was trying to book the interview at Mass Appeal, just to be like, to keep it a buck, not everybody was like as excited about it as I was. And, you know, even like when I saw the interviews he did on New York radio stations for Victory Lap, some of those outlets that he went to were not, they just weren't up on his music like they should be. And they, you know, these are like gatekeepers of major radio stations that are considered like national tastemakers for hip hop. And, you know, to have one of them say, you know, I'm not going to throw shade and call names, but, you know, it's on the internet. You can find where they say, oh, this is the first album of yours I've ever had a chance to sit with. You know, that's embarrassing to me. You know, that's not right. Like, this man made classics. And, you know, I was at Complex when he tweeted "fuck Complex," just to share another little insight. Like, if you guys remember that.
We
moment.
remember.
Yeah, you know, he said you know, we did a list, which for the record, I did not work on that list. But anyway, I know who did. They put out the top 10 underachieving rappers, right? And I think it had to do with the love that Complex had for him. And damn, we've been waiting on this, what was it, South Central State of Mind album for a while. And, you know, we know the backstory now. We know why there were delays. And even LA Weekly, I think, said it's crunch time for Nipsey Hussle in one of their headlines. You know, he heard all that. He felt the pressure, but he had reasons that he wasn't able to drop. But when he dropped Crenshaw and had that concept of Proud to Pay and charged $100 for each CD, that changed the whole game. That's a visionary move that people like Justin Bieber and you know, pop artists, are Taylor Swift is doing it. They call it bundles. They sell the CD with concert tickets now. That was Nip Hussle's idea. He changed the game at a time when people were not able to sell music. Napster had people downloading albums for free, and his mixtape was on Dat Piff for free. But his fans loved him so much that they lined up, and it was $100,000 bag that he walked away with after that first night, including 10,000 from Jay-Z, who tapped in at that moment. So,
Nipsey was very innovative,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Nipsey was very, very innovative, and that's why, Nipsey Hussle, everybody knows he was out there hustling. Can you tell us, Rob, one thing from the book that we can learn from the book that maybe people don't know about Nipsey? Just a little peek.
So many things. I thought I was up on, some of it, but boy, I learned a lot in the process. One thing that blew my mind, I spoke with Rallo Stiles, who was a high school classmate of Nips and has credits on Victory Lap. He actually co-produced Dedication and some other joints on that record. But Rallo Stiles was making music with Nip way before he was even called Nipsey Hussle. That name came later. And at the time he was known as Concept. This is like out of high school. Like he didn't finish high school, but in that time they made a record which found its way to the attention of the late Afeni Shakur, Tupac's mother. And she was impressed by the music so much that she invited Rallo and Nip and the other artists that were on that particular record to fly to Atlanta and perform at a Tupac album release, one of those posthumous tribute albums that the family put out. So when Tupac of my generation comes out in Nipsey's raps, that was a deep line. There was more to it than people realize. Destiny was calling to him, for Afeni to be impressed with his rhymes and say, I want this young man that no one has ever heard of to come perform at my son's album launch. Wow. Fly him and his friends from Los Angeles to Atlanta, and let's do it. And in the book, you'll hear more, like even while they were riding from the airport to Stone Mountain, Georgia, where the event was taking place, Matulu Shakur happened to call from inside behind the wall, and for some reason he asked to speak to Ermias Ascadon. Why? Why did he choose of all, there was a few artists that had flown in from LA, but he wanted to, it's mystical. I don't understand it myself, but Rallo Stiles shared that anecdote with me. And that's a blessing to speak to people like that. And that was why I wrote this book. I wanted the real day one people to be heard from.
No, that's pretty awesome. And we know what he does when he's in the booth and how his lyrics just penetrate, right? But let's talk about the community and political work that he's done. Can they see some of that in your book?
Oh, 100%. I mean, there's a whole chapter. Well, actually, the first chapter opens with the opening of the Marathon Clothing Smart Store and just the concept that this would be sort of like the Apple store in the hood. And, that he was so ahead of his time with the technological breakthroughs that were in that store and the way they were using digital technology. And he got Idris Sandu to come in and create the codes for the app and everything. But he was also employing so many people who might not have been able to find legitimate employment because they had, maybe a criminal record or what have you. And it's almost as if the authorities didn't want him to provide those job opportunities for people in his community. They kept harassing and shutting down the store. They kept trying to fight the progress of this young man and his family-owned business. And, that's one of the frustrating parts of the story. And the fact that he was able to face up to that kind of pushback and, provide positive outlets for so many people and inspire so many people, like that's a huge piece of it. The other activism part that has to be spoken on, we're coming up to, everybody is sadly aware of March 31st, a very tragic date coming up, but I want to remind people also that March 30th 2021 marks the 5th anniversary of a record called FDT. And for YG and Nip to come together and unite not only the streets of LA, but black and brown, and really just, counteract a negative influence in politics in this country, and to recognize, before the United States Congress impeached Donald Trump, it was YG and Nipsey who impeached him.
Absolutely. Actually, they were, we talk about that record, they were the first to do it. And it was really an act out of bravery. You know what I mean? They didn't like what Donald Trump was doing to black and brown people. So, as being a Mexicana from LA, when they did that, I was like, right on, somebody's speaking for us. Somebody is out there and they care about us. So I really appreciate, YG and Nip for that. But let's go back to Nipsey about what did you learn from him that you could pass on to others? Because when I spoke to Nipsey and when we did hang out, it was what I learned from him was to remain humble. And he always looked you in the eye when he spoke to you because that showed a sign of respect that you were important to him. And I will always remember he never looked past me. He never looked around when he was talking. He focused and he looked at me in the eye to make me feel like I'm paying attention to you. And that's something that I took and I'm going to pass it on. And I want to do it to others. You know what I'm saying? So is there anything that Nipsey maybe passed on to you that you're passing on to others?
I've tried to squeeze every drop of knowledge and insight that I gained into the 400 pages of this book. And honestly, it could have been 600 or more pages. It's just the publisher couldn't handle it all. But honestly, there's a lot to share. But I think back to that conversation that we had during the Victory Lap rollout. And, you interview people all the time. Both of you understand that some interviews are interviews and some are more like conversations.
Right.
And then some of them are more like a moment where you almost like realize this is not even normal. So I'm seeing this room from the sky. I'm looking down on what's happening right now. And it was that kind of combo with me and Nip. And to be honest with you, I walked out of that room thinking about my own life and my own work in a different way. He said that the rules of the game are not made by artists and creators, and that was what determined his whole concept of like F the middleman and the whole idea of like retaining ownership of his master recordings and not signing to a record label, not going for the okie doke contract. And that same mindset is really something I've applied to myself, and I'm not putting up blog posts, like when I was at Vibe, for 17 years, that was a print magazine. We were backed by Quincy and major publication. And then one day it folded and I walked out of there. I owned nothing. They marched us out of that building. The bank had repossessed the building and, Vibe ceased publication. And I realized, wow, I've given 17 years to this company. And, I love Vibe, I love Quincy, but I'm walking out of here not really knowing what my next move is. And, so Nipsey had a way of helping you think about yourself. And he would ask you, like you're supposed to be interviewing him. And a lot of people have this experience. He would turn around. So what's your plan? What's your 5-year plan? And, and just to speak with someone that was, so caring about other people and giving out game. That was another line that really stuck with me. He said, I'm not outside handing out bags of money, but the game is free. And when we were young people coming up, that's all we expected is give us the game. You don't have to give us all the secrets, but just give us the game. And if you're secure in your own hustling, you're not going to have to worry about the competition from us. And so, he very consciously shared all of the insights that he had. And my book is an attempt to pass that down and let people really, understand why this man was so important.
Well, look here, man.
Yes.
Man.
People that don't know why the Staples Center had a big memorial for a mixtape rapper, who went on to be a Grammy winner and all that. But at that moment, a lot of people were sleeping, and this book is an attempt to wake them up.
Well, I think it's definitely going to do just that. It's available right now. The Marathon Don't Stop, The Life and Times of Nipsey Hussle. Rob, man, you did your thing. Make sure, let them know where they can pick that book up at right now. Let them know.
The easiest thing is hit my Instagram at Robert J. Kenner, and link in the bio has links for audiobook, every country around the world, wherever you want. And tap in tonight. Me and Davey D are going to be doing something on Zoom. We're going to have a conversation. The legendary Davey D, you might remember his interview with Nip Hussle outside the Get Your Money Right Summit back in the day when young Nip was saying, I'm not wearing chains because I want to invest in real estate. And
right.
like,
yeah.
What?
But we love Davey D. I'll be on Davey D's website. Get some of my information. Rob, thank you so much.
Appreciate you.
It means so much. Thank you so much for showing Nipsey love because, let me tell you, when he passed, it was, we took it so hard. It felt like all of LA was quiet. all of LA was mourning. It just felt like this veil of just sadness over Los Angeles. And I remember when, we were, on Instagram and they're like, oh my God, they're saying, Nip just passed away. And I'm like, no, it's not true. It's not true. And we're looking on Instagram and we're like, no. And the very next day, I took off and I was at the Marathon store and I was like, we're broadcasting, let's go right now. And we saw a lot of people there. People were mourning, people were crying, they were holding each other. It just goes to show you what this man meant. He meant so much to LA, but then also too, he meant a lot to the world.
To the world.
Yes.
In such a short time, he tapped into the world. So thank you, man. We appreciate you putting this book together.
Yes.
They're going to go to your IG page. They're going to go ahead and handle their business, and we'll talk to you soon for sure.
Really quick, though, I want to tell everybody right now, make sure you order that book. We are trying to get it on the bestsellers list.
Got to do it.
Yes. So let's all do that for Nipsey.
All right.
Since it's KDAY, I got to shout out Cousin Capone, Jay Stone, Pac-Man, BH, all the people that trusted me to tell this story. Dexter Brown, who's never been heard from, that played such a huge role in Nip's early career. There's a lot of voices in this book, and, all of them are carrying on the marathon. So Absolutely. Big respect to everybody.
Well, there it is, honey. The marathon continues. It's 935 KDAY.
Let's get it.